start. So just a little later than anticipated, and very sorry. Many apologies for that. Please can we welcome to the stage, it's the new Sarah and the new Harry, it's Sadie Miller and Chris Naylor. Would you like a mic? It probably doesn't work. I don't know, just talk into it.
Hello?
No, press a button.
Hello?
Did you get Chris?
Hello.
Hello, Chris.
Do I press something? It's technology.
No.
Hello. Oh, yes, there we are.
There we are, your
Hello.
mics, you're on. I've got an old-fashioned one with a cable. Anyway, yes, thank you for coming again, and thanks so much for performing in the sketch. It was massively appreciated, wasn't it? Yay! As I said, I'm always terribly grateful to the actors for doing it, because, you know, they come to answer questions and you say, do you mind doing this script? And nobody said no yet, but there's always going to be one, I think. So thank you again for that. So we'll do what we did with the earlier interviews, and if I kick off with a couple of questions, and then it's your floor, and we'll hand over to questions in the audience. Don't forget to shout, because we haven't got a roving mic. Okay, so Sadie, Chris, thanks again for coming. Acting, was it always in your blood? Is it always what you wanted to do, or have you explored other career paths? Tell us about acting and you.
Well, I think...
Is it working?
Yes.
I think obviously growing up with both my parents being actors, it was always something in my field of vision. And I did work as a child, but I think my parents obviously weren't very keen on me doing it.
Did you? As a child actor?
Yes.
What were you in? What did you do?
I did a television thing called Royal Celebration about the wedding of Charles and Diana, which is a lovely experience.
And you were Charles?
No, unfortunately not. I think you'd rather be Charles than Diana, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But Leslie Phillips was in it. I got to sit with Liz as a little girl, and it was so lovely to me. And but there was quite a lot of sex in it and things that my parents didn't particularly want me to see. So when we went to the screening, my mum had to sit me down and be like, "There's some moments in this that you will have to kind of shut your eyes for, you know." So I think because of the adult nature of the business, my parents didn't necessarily want me to do it so young. So I went to university and went to drama school afterwards, and then have gone.
Which university?
Later on. I went to York.
Reading?
English, so pointless really. Really. But yeah, I had a nice time, but definitely I think it's been a bit of an up and down path for me. But I think it is for most actors really. You've got to supplement it with other things, unless you're very lucky straight away.
That's right, yeah. I mean, not in my family at all. My dad was an accountant. My mum was a magistrate. So they had proper sort of serious lives, and I was always frivolous. And I mean, I think actually in a way it was probably Doctor Who that kind of launched me on the path, because I was a huge fan of Tom, and he was sort of captivated me from a very young age. And then I remember going to see Star Wars in the cinema, and then coming home and pretending to be Luke Skywalker. But then there was a little shift where I realised that there was a difference between actually being a Time Lord or a international, intergalactic sort of hero, and playing one. That there was a job which meant you could actually go and pretend to do these things for a living and get paid. And I think when I made that discovery, I couldn't think of anything that would be more exciting and a better way of spending my life. So yeah, I also did a pointless English degree.
Did you?
Yeah, at Lancaster.
Oh my gosh, York and Lancaster.
Yes, I know.
The rivals.
It's War of the Roses, isn't it? But I always wanted to go to drama school afterwards, so for me it was kind of, I'll satisfy my parents' requirements that I get a decent degree, and then I can have my frivolous life. And that's how it happened.
Mm. And how did the Big Finish engagements come about?
So I... lost it again.
So I did Big Finish with my mum when I was still in high school in my last year, doing the original Sarah Jane series before it then obviously got picked up again by Russell T Davies in a different way. So I had that relationship with them quite young, and then when they asked me to come and do Sarah, it was just David Richardson, our producer, just contacting me, just asking if I'd be interested. The relationship went from there, really. But I was very lucky, obviously, to work with them when I was young and then having that pre-existing relationship, really.
Yeah, well, for me, it was, I was working at the Orange Tree Theatre in Richmond, lovely little theatre in the round, with an actor called Jamie Newell. And Jamie had done a lot of Big Finish, and I knew about them, and I knew they were doing Doctor Who stuff. And he put in a good word. And so my first gig with them was, I think, The Avengers, I think, playing a murderous camp fashion designer. And after that, I was in Sherlock Holmes with Nick Briggs. And so then I started playing lots of robots and aliens and Man with Ladder, I played once.
Was that a challenge?
It was quite a heavy imaginary ladder.
Yeah.
And while I was doing all this, I asked David Richardson, very lovely man, I said, I'd love to work with Tom Baker, because he was my childhood hero. And he said, oh yeah, we'll get room with Tom. And it was as simple as that. Or it was just one sort of simple conversation over a cup of tea, and my childhood dreams were realised. So he got me with Tom, and I did a few things with Tom, and somewhere along the line they worked out that I sounded a little bit like Ian Marter. They talked about bringing Harry back, and it was that easy, really.
Was it Tom that said that you sounded like him?
I don't know. I don't think it was Tom, because Tom certainly said that about Tim Trelaw, didn't he?
Yes.
Being John Pertwee. I think it was Nick Briggs, John Dorney, people like that who'd worked out that I had a bit of a focus similarity. Yeah.
I actually can't, when I hear you as Harry, I can't tell the difference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's very kind.
But, I mean, do you play the parts differently from your mother and from Ian Marter, would you say?
It's interesting, we're talking about this upstairs because normally, as you were saying to me, you play a part that's been played by other actors before, but with this you're playing someone else playing the part, so you've got those
so you've got two,
yeah. Because you have to honour the original, don't you?
Yeah.
Especially as it's only audio, so people want to hear that familiarity and that nostalgia as well as the newness of these new stories.
Yeah, it's a funny gig really, isn't it? Because you try and keep their voice in your head. Certainly when you're reading through the script for the first time. I always listen to a bit of Ian Marter, watch a bit of the shows, and, to try and keep it fresh. And I don't know about you, Sadie, but if I'm struggling, if I feel the voice is slipping away, I just try and picture him, just see him in the costume in one of the shows, and it does help to sort of focus it again in my mind.
Are you good mimics as actors, or do you have to watch tapes and then try and get the voice, or does it come easily?
No, I think you definitely have to watch it back. I mean, we luckily both work with John Coleshaw a lot, and he is just obviously exemplary at it, but I'm not.
And he's extraordinary, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely incredible, but I'm definitely not a natural mimic, playing someone else, definitely not.
No, me neither. I mean, it's an extraordinary skill. John is
amazing.
Incredible. I bumped into him just a couple of weeks ago in the studio doing something, and we were having a cup of tea, and he was being very nice and sort of complimentary about my Harry, and he said, we should do a little sketch, shouldn't we, just the two of us, just the Brig and Harry, and so he immediately launched into this. And he said, what would you like, son? What would you like to drink? And I went, I'll have a pint of IPA, please. And he went, that's wonderful, Harry. But his Brigadier is just closed
It's astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he's an amazing person. I'm not really a mimic. But this is an unusual gig. I've never really been asked to play another actor playing a character before, so it's something
unusual experience.
It is, yeah. But there is scope. I mean, the scripts are so good, and it's always based on the writing, whatever you're doing anyway. The writers are so good at capturing the characters. I know there are specific writers, and there are always script editors who will go through it and just tweak it a bit, and add in a few more old girls or those or something. And so they make it reads like Sarah and Gillian, and then so that really helps, makes it a lot easier for us.
Yeah, I agree with what Chris says. The rhythm of the writing falls into that RP dialogue they would have had, so then you get like a dance, isn't it? You get
Yeah.
into your spot, you know where you're going.
Jenny was something that she said earlier this morning was hinting that actors now find RP more challenging than actors trained in the 60s and 70s. Did you find that?
Well, I think
No.
I don't personally find it. No.
No.
And I wonder if
But
it's-
RP
We are
itself
very
is
middle
different
class.
now.
We are, yes, true. That's right.
Do you find your natural accent challenging?
No, it's really. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's interesting,
that's a
though,
good
isn't
question.
it?
Yeah.
I think. 'Cause
And I
RP
suppose
is
RP is
sometimes-
different now, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you listen to recordings of the Queen from last year and from the 60s, she actually talks differently. She's much posher
That's
in the
true.
60s.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, it's quite extreme, isn't it? If you look at something like Brief Encounter,
Oh,
or
yes.
those old Ealing comedies or something, even the Cockney accent, of course, has changed. All voices have changed. But yeah, it's true. I mean, I think these days you watch a period thing that's set in the 40s or 50s. They don't go for the extreme RP thing. It's such a weird voice that I think it's quite off-putting
Yes.
in some ways.
Yeah, alienating.
Yeah.
I'll be quiet. Right, questions from the audience, ladies and gentlemen, and don't let me neglect this side. Questions from the audience. Gentleman here, sir.
Do you revisit the Big Finish titles you do afterwards? Do you re-listen to any of them?
They're very nice when they send us a copy, so I'll normally listen through to it once, just because in the studio you have no real idea of how it's going to sound at the end, so it's nice to listen to it again, isn't it?
Yeah.
But not over and over again.
No,
One
no.
time.
Yeah, once is enough.
Once is
usually.
enough.
But also, a lot of the stuff that we've recorded hasn't been released yet.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I was recording with Tom, because I do stories with Tom with another character called Naomi Cross. They haven't released any of them. We recorded them in 2018, and they're not coming out till next year. So there'll be an epic. I can't remember what we did in any of them, so it will be very interesting to hear.
And
So
that's,
I'll listen to those because I'll just remind me what on earth I was getting up to.
that's you as Harry.
That's
Okay.
me as Harry, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for Harry's return to Big Finish is tremendously convoluted. The timeline of it is totally scrambled. Makes very little sense to me. And they've all worked it out now, and it's kind of been explained that we've been recording stuff that sort of ties it all together. But it's been released out of order. So at some point in the distant future, it may be possible to knit all these things together and make some sort of chronological sense. But
Yes.
it's beyond me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Those lady here, yes. Hello.
Sadie, what's it like playing a role that your mum played previously?
Yeah, so it's obviously quite intimidating, especially in the beginning. But I think having such a warm reception and people accepting it and enjoying it has been so wonderful and so joyous. So I feel very lucky to get to be in the position to do it. Really, obviously I wish it was her doing it, but it's been lovely and lovely to work with people like Chris and everyone at Big Finish. Who's such a nice team, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's lovely.
You're a lovely bunch.
And it must be a nice tribute to your mother to inherit the part.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's been wonderful, really special.
I mean, I can remember when Sadie came in to do the Return of the Cybermen. I hadn't met you before. And I put my headphones on and it was just amazing. Because I'm very familiar with your mum's work and you just sounded wonderful. You fit it right in straight away, and she's brilliant. Such a good actress as well.
Yes.
Oh,
It's a pleasure to work with you.
Oh, it's a big lovely fest now.
It is, yeah. Sorry.
Hello.
One of the things that a lot of Doctor Who people that do Big Finish have always said that the lunches. Is that true? Yeah.
Well, it is true, but sadly things have changed a bit. And again, as with so many things, we have COVID to blame for this. We used to record with a lovely fellow called Toby, who ran a studio called the Moat Studios in Ladbroke Grove. And Toby was a genius. I mean, he was a genius with sound and production and all that, but also an incredible cook. He cooked it all, and he had a kitchen about the size of, that area there. It was like a sort of extended shed. And you'd be recording, and around about 11 o'clock, these amazing smells would start sort of wafting around the studio. And he would cook a whole side of salmon, he'd make trifles and chocolate torts, and incredible. And everything would stop for lunch, and you'd all stuff yourselves massively, and you have a very sleepy afternoon of recording. So, but sadly, Toby's retired now, and the studio's closed, so it's pret-a-manger.
Yeah,
It's
not
very
quite the
nice.
same.
Shouldn't turn your nose up at a Pret sandwich, but it's not the same.
Yes. Hello. Yes. Yes.
I loved the Big Finish Sarah Jane series, and obviously you were in it already. Would there be a chance of Natalie being recast so the adventures could be cut? Because obviously it left on a really cliffhanger.
Yes, that's a really good question actually. I don't know how, if they would want to take it forward, but I would be happy to do that maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the, what word am I thinking of? Copyright issues are with the older Sarah Jane adventure side of things, but they've got Rani now back, haven't they? So I don't know if older Sarah would have to go into that sort of storyline now, but that would be a very good idea, I think, to maybe continue those on, because people do still enjoy those as well.
Yeah. I think the good thing about Big Finish is they're always looking for different avenues to explore. They're so busy, they're always working. So, you know, I'm sure there's probably conversations being had somewhere.
Thank you. Tom, Colin, even.
This is for Sadie. What is your earliest memories of Sarah Jane Smith, like when you were a child? You know, Elizabeth wasn't Sarah back then, but how did you get to know your mum as Sarah Jane?
Oh yeah, well my mum got me to watch them just on one VHS, and it's weird as a child because she's sort of in the room with me, and she doesn't look like how she looks on the television, obviously she's older, but it's still her, and then she's there as well. So it was a bit odd to start with, but you know, kids in the playground would play Doctor Who and pretend to be exterminated by Daleks, and then it became sort of quite normalised that it was this, you know, big thing of its own, this universe of Doctor Who, and she was a part of it and continued to be going to conventions, so all the pieces started to kind of jigsaw together. But watching her initially was quite weird as a child, you know.
Did you ever play Doctor Who in the playground?
No, I wasn't really very interested in it particularly, and I've children of my own now, they're not interested at all either, so the bloodline is weak. But even the man, like, look, your grandma is an action figure. No, not interested at all, so we'll see, wait till they get a bit older.
Yeah. Colin Baker was here a couple of years ago, and he said trying to get his daughters to watch Doctor Who was impossible, and they like Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh dear, it's shameful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Hello.
Hello. My main question is, what was it like during the pandemic to work with Big Finish? Because, of course, while physical acting was kind of off the table, audio acting, of course, continued, which, God bless Big Finish for that, because that was amazing. And also, God, I completely forgot my second question.
We'll come back to it. Shall we come back to it? So, what was it like in the pandemic? How did you do
Well,
it?
it was great. Frankly, I mean, thank God for Big Finish, as you say. I mean, I've been recording in the studio up to that point, and almost as soon as we were locked down, I had an email from David Richardson saying, "We're going to send you a microphone." And he did, didn't he? He sent us a little box with a mic that you plugged into your iPhone, and we all set up our studios with duvets and bulldog clips in my case. Bulldog clip is an extraordinary creation, in my opinion. And
that's going to be the soundbite of the day. The bulldog clip is an extraordinary creation.
Well, they can do anything with the bulldog clip. Plugged it into the iPhone and carried on working, and it was an absolute godsend. Money, employment, you know, it's sort of sociable, you know, elements to it as well. It's great. So we got through it, didn't we? But now we're back in the studio again, thank God.
Were you interacting with the other actors while you did that? I mean, you didn't just record all of Harry's lines and then they cut them in with...
Yeah, no. Initially we used to do it on Zoom, so you'd all get to see each other. Then they discovered Clean Feed, which is a brilliant way of recording, and you know, you can be on the other side of the world, and it's you know, extraordinary. I did find a slightly odd thing about it. You have your headphones on all day long talking to people, and then it'd be lunchtime, and I'd take my headphones off and go downstairs and make myself some lunch, and sit on my own with my scrambled eggs or a cup of tea, and then go back on there they all were again. At the end of the day, I kind of thought, I feel like I've imagined the whole thing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anyone, haven't spent time in anyone's company. It's almost like I was listening to a radio play. And the awful thing is sometimes if they put you on mute, you don't realise it, and people are having a chat, sharing an anecdote, and you go, oh yes, isn't it wonderful, and then they can't hear you, so you're talking away, and they're not responding, and you think, oh, maybe I am imagining it. But yeah, it was a relief to be working.
Yes, it's the same for me. David Richardson sent me a mic and popped it on my laptop in my pyjamas in my bedroom. But yeah, putting up all your pillows and just working really. And I think Big Finish employed about 1,000 people or something during the pandemic. So I mean, it's amazing. So it was incredible how they really pushed to keep it going. They just weren't phased, were they, at all? They just, kept the schedule.
Kept as busy as ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, I'm just going to say I read Big Fish at Lancaster too.
Oh,
But my question was about the Big Finish magazine. A lot of the photographs seem to have a background of an old car park. Isn't there anywhere with a nicer background you could stand?
I wish there was. It's sort of Soundhouse Studios car park. Yeah, it's traditional. Yeah, that's where you end up. You have your lunch and they say it's photographs and off you go to the car park.
Or the audio sorcery, that room with just a white background.
Yes, that's right.
And a little cell.
Yeah, or this staircase at Moat used to be gather on the staircase. Yeah.
Sir?
So Harry and Sarah are obviously quite close. Do you think their relationship is strictly platonic, or is there anything else?
I've always thought strictly platonic. I think Harry's too much of a buffoon to appeal to Sarah, really. What do you think?
Yeah, I think she was a staunchly independent woman, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Not having any nonsense.
Does she like him, do you think? Does she like him?
I think they're very like a brother and sister, really.
Yeah, there is that. There's that lovely...
Because they squabble, don't they?
Yes, definitely.
Or she squabbles with him.
They annoy each
he's-
other,
Yeah.
but they love for each other. It's a shame, isn't it, that Ian's character didn't get to develop more.
I think he was really hard done by, wasn't he? Certainly with his exit. He sort of
Yes, just fizzled out, didn't he?
Yeah.
Such a shame.
But I don't think you should get your hopes up for any romance. Not very likely.
But the Doctor and Harry, that's maybe one.
Well, Harry's, he's probably up for anything, but surprise me.
Which Doctor would Harry choose then? Which incarnation?
That's a good question.
Partner.
Father figure, you mean?
Yeah.
Grandfather
figure, yeah.
Well, I'll send Nick Briggs an email and see.
Yes, gentleman in the front row here.
What would you say would be the enduring appeal of Doctor Who and its kind of entourage, as it were?
What's the enduring appeal?
Entourage.
Chris and I were talking about this before as well. I think it's that it's because it's a place where everyone is seen. Everyone feels that the Doctor's reaching through the screen to them, to take them away and to, have these wonderful adventures that just safe away. Talking about, love storylines. I know it's more in the modern series, they have sort of interpersonal relationships, but I think especially in the original series, it was such a friendship thing, and everyone needs that, don't they? That core group of chosen family. And I think that's, to me, what it's about.
That's right. That sort of sense of safety. And I think, I can remember watching it and I always felt so relieved when they got back to the TARDIS, because you were safe in there, pretty much. The doors closed, in that rickety little wooden box, but nothing could get in. I always felt, when they got separated from the Doctor, that's when my anxiety would go up. But when they were back together again, I thought, well, they're going to be okay. So yeah, that sense of security and safety. And frankly, the fact that they didn't kiss all the time. Everyone was kissing on television, but Doctor never kissing. As a 5-year-old, that's quite important. But yeah, I think he's like he, she, they, like a safe relative or a safe friend or somebody who would look after you. And you could have extraordinary adventures and make it back to the TARDIS in one piece. Wonderful.
Thank you.
That's good. Yes, sir.
You have to tell us about obviously working with Tom. Presumably you met him when you were fairly young, Sadie, originally, and how's it then now working with him? And is he always giving you, I remember when Liz said this and when Ian said that? Is it like that, or...?
I mean, I've met Tom quite a few times, been very lucky, and he's the same every time, because I think he has a very standard way of approaching everyone. You sort of have this outer shield of Tom, where he is, I won't try and do the voice, but Tom Baker, you know. So every time I meet him, it's like the first time, really. And he doesn't really tell me stories about Mum, but I think that he is very much in love with my mum, on the deepest level possible, where it's your family, you know, that you work with, and that they had a very special bond together. And when she was doing Sarah Jane in Cardiff, he wrote little postcards to her, you know, congratulating her and things, and I don't know, he's just the same, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I mean, it's a while since we've seen him because, of course, COVID has kind of locked him down, I guess, and he's getting on a bit now. I mean, I was terrified when I met him because I thought I knew the stories from the 70s and I thought, what's he going to be like? But he was entirely lovely and very friendly. He does, as Sadie says, has the same anecdotes and things that he will tell. And with Big Finish, there's a new cast every week. There are the regulars and then there are the other actors who come in. And it's almost like he would test the other actors to see how they would respond. I worked with an actress just recently, for the first time since years before, with Tom, and I recognised her, and I said, "Are you a vegan?" And she said, "Yeah, I am." I said, "You worked with me with Tom, didn't you?" And she said, "Yeah." Because I can remember Tom being amazed that she was a vegan. And she said, "Vegan? Does that mean you can't eat oysters?" And she said, "No, I can't eat oysters, Tom." He said, "Oh, I suppose oysters have mothers too, don't they?" And then the following week we were back in the studio, and he said, "You know, last week we had somebody here who was a vegan, and somebody said to her, you know, does that mean you can't eat oysters?" And I said, "That was you, Tom." So he is an eccentric and loves playing the part of an eccentric, but you can actually have a conversation with him. And I found, you know, occasionally in the afternoon in a quiet moment when everybody else was in the studio recording, I could talk to Tom because my parents were from Liverpool, and we would talk about the experience of, you know, growing up in the 30s and 40s in Liverpool. Like my dad was roughly the same age as Tom. So yeah, there's a real man inside, but I think he does have a little bit of a shield that he puts up. You know? But it's a lovely place.
Anybody have not asked a question before? Anybody not asked? The gentleman at the back.
There's a question for Sadie. You worked with Tim as the third Doctor, and with Tom as the fourth Doctor. Do you see any difference in the relationship between Sarah and those two characters?
Interesting.
Yes, definitely. I think she and the third Doctor have more of a sort of pupil-teacher relationship, a bit more tension, but with Tom it's a lot more friendly, a lot more fun. I think with Harry coming in as well, there's a bit more banter going on. But Tim is great fun to work with as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's lovely.
A bit naughty, but but I would definitely say that that's how that relationship transitioned from sort of the more traditional Doctor-companion relationship to then that friendship growing.
He's a bit naughty.
Do you
want to tell? Oh, okay. Good. Jolly good. Yes.
Question for Chris. You said you thought, like, how would you envision Harry's exit if you could choose anything? You thought about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, Harry's, he doesn't have the same sort of adventurous spirit as Sarah. Clearly he doesn't. And he has more of an attachment to Earth and home. And certainly in some of the stories that I've been recording, Harry wants to go back home. And even in the, you know, he wants to go back and have some fish and chips and put his feet up and put the radio on, have a cup of tea. And I think we never saw him in the TARDIS, you know. I just always think that was a terrible shame. We heard his reaction to being in there, but we never saw him in there. So I wish he'd had the chance to be in that environment and to have been given the opportunity to be taken home and to see him arriving home. I mean, Sarah's exit was so beautiful and poignant, wasn't it? And so moving. And we all remember it. I wish Harry had had the chance to do that. I imagine it would have had a more sort of comic element to it. arriving at the wrong place at the wrong time or something. But just a bit more of a farewell would have been nice, I think.
Yes, yes. Yes, hello.
Hi, so my question actually is for Chris. You recently designed some covers for Big Finish.
Yeah.
How did that come about? And also, both of you really, do you get to see the covers before they're officially released?
We don't normally, do we? I don't think
No,
so.
no.
We find out when everybody else does,
Yeah.
really. And they're usually wonderful, and they're very talented digital artists who do most of them. I'm not a digital artist, I'm sort of painter and pencil wielder. But it was Nick Briggs, and he wanted a cover for Jekyll and Hyde. He was a wonderful adaptation of that. So I had a go, and he was very pleased, and I think that led to him wanting something for the first Doctor. So I got my paintbrushes out again. And it's a nice thing because it's a bit of it's a wonderful thing for me, but it's also a little departure for them from sort of digital realm for a while.
I think we've got time for one more. Yes, sir.
So a few years ago, Russell was saying about the Stolen Earth, and about how all the modern era companions around the TARDIS. He said his inspiration for that was when he was a kid growing up watching Doctor Who, when he see all the Unis era companions together, Joan, Liz, Sarah, Harry, etc. Obviously that can now be possible with Big Finish. Would that be the sort of thing you'd like to do?
Great.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd love to do that. I think it'd be. I mean, Chris and I have been lucky to meet, our two doctors that we work with a lot and things. But it would be lovely to do more stories with more companions. I'd love to work with Daisy.
Yes.
That would be wonderful to do a story with her. So I think that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we can make these suggestions, can't we? I suppose. There's a lot of emails we can send off, but that would be great. Yeah.
We're going to call a halt to this session. Again, as always, I'd like to go on for another couple of hours, but unfortunately the schedule won't allow for it. So, huge thanks for coming, and it's lovely to see you.
Thank you.